what is the significance, if there is any, of you choosing number one?
And there is this phrase, it's called audience of one. So you're
Mhm.
not playing for everybody else. You're not playing for just your family or for yourself. I'm playing for God.
Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Bench Mob ENT podcast, the best sports podcast in New Jersey. We have special guests with us. Tiara Bolden is in the building. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Can't complain. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to hop on. Before we get started, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, hit that subscribe button, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review and share it with everybody, your baby mother, your uncle, your cousin, your toddler. We don't care. Share it with any and everybody. It's going to be a great episode for you. For those that don't know, you play collegiate basketball. What about basketball drew you to the sport? What do you love about it most?
Um, I think the main reason why I continue to stick with basketball is because I met so many people along the way that I wouldn't even know of, like, made such an impact on my life. Like, for example, in high school, I had this one coach on JV because I didn't play varsity going into my freshman year. And he was my coach. And I was like, like, he's all right. He's just a regular coach. But something just like drew me to him. Now it's crazy to think about because he's been my trainer ever since and has trained me to get to where I am today. But I would have never thought, like, if I wouldn't have played, JV basketball, I wouldn't have met him. And now, like, we're literally like this. So.
That's dope. A lot of people
Yeah.
say that with sports, that the connections and the relationships that they built with playing sports is like one of the biggest things that they have, like, for life. It's a lot of
Yeah.
Most of my friends I actually met through playing basketball. So
Really?
yeah,
I'm telling you, basketball is just a sport where everybody can just come together, honestly.
most definitely. Now for you, was it always the goal for you? Like you said, freshman year you played JV, then you end up playing varsity after that. Was it always a goal to go to collegiate level and play basketball and then end up at a D1, or you just was trying to play college basketball in general?
I mean, I didn't really take basketball as serious until like my junior year, and that's where I was like, I actually think I can make a living out of this. Like, I think that I can play. I think I'm good enough. So I was like, I just want to play collegiate basketball. Um, but the reason I did want to go D1 out of high school, however, I just wanted to go somewhere um that I was wanted. And I'm like, okay, like I could really play D1, right? But in reality, I don't think if I wouldn't have gone JUCO first, I wouldn't have got the experience and like the growth and the development that I needed in order to reach that spot. But I mostly wanted to go D1 to prove people wrong because so many people have told me that I wasn't going to make it. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to make it. And then I started growing up to the fact that, not D1, just because you're D1 doesn't necessarily mean you're like, the creme de la creme. Like there's people that I know that play D3 or D2 and they're actually like really good programs. So I just wanted to go somewhere now that where I was more wanted. So,
Shout out to you for that. Shout out to you for having a belief in yourself. And with that, you said something that I want to touch on. Two things, actually. You mentioned it was your
sure.
junior year that you said, all right, I could really do this for a living. What
Mhm.
happened in that junior year that gave you that confidence, like, oh, I'm going to be able to do this?
I think the confidence part really came in was at the end of the year. My team actually made it to state and we played our rival team, like our big rival team. It was called Crater High School. So like that was like the best like program in my conference, and the goal was to beat them out of it. Like we beat them. We were like 1-for-1 basically during the season. So I was like, like I really want to play against this team. I had some clips that actually was posted on Twitter a while ago, but I hit a step back three that someone recorded, and that was probably one of the best high school games I've ever played because the video kind of went viral a little bit. And I was like, like that's crazy. Like I think I could do more of that. And then I got like notifications from people like scouting me, and they were like, well, she was the best, most efficient shooter in the game, shooting 5 for 7 from the 3-point range, player of the game, scored like a game high and stuff like that. So I was like, I could get used to this. I'm like, I really like this. So then ever since then, I was like telling my trainer, because his name's Coach T, I'm like, I really think I can make it. Like, I'm like, let's try to get to the next step.
That's dope. That's really fire right there. And you mentioned, we did in my research, I saw you went to JUCO and then you ended up at Lasalle. Before we even talk about where you're at now, what was that experience like in JUCO? Because I know everybody has different experiences. Some say it's really bad and they just try to make sure they get out to go to the next school. What was your experience on that JUCO level?
At first it was kind of hard trying to find like a role coming in as like an incoming freshman. But I mean, over the time, I have some of the best memories from playing basketball going to JUCO. Like, I really think that it didn't just develop me as a basketball player, but it also developed me as a human being. My head coach at EA, she was absolutely the best. Like, she literally took me under her wing my freshman year. And usually, like, I get stories about JUCO, like JUCOs and all that stuff. But I feel like you have to fall in love with the journey, because I feel like if you fall in love with the journey rather than falling in love with the destination, there's really no point. Like, I feel like if you were to fall in love with the process, it's so much more rewarding compared to like once you're already there, because you're gonna look back at it and be like, wow, I did all this, and this. Like, there would be times where I'd have practices at like 6 in the morning, or I'd have to go run a mile. And then after the mile, I was like, I want to push myself because I know I can get better. So I'd run the bleachers and do all the little things that not many people would do in order to make me stand out from everybody else. So I feel like looking back on it now, I do miss it. I'm not gonna lie, I really do miss JUCO. Just because like I met so many people that like I will literally be friends for life with over there. And I don't know. I think just JUCO was a great experience for me to just learn more about basketball before, jumping straight into the deep end.
That's dope. I think we have the title for the episode right there. Fall in love with the journey. That has to be the title. That's
I
such
agree.
that's such great knowledge right there and a great perspective, because that's something that you can use across life, is falling in love with the journey of whatever you're trying to do, whether it's basketball, school, your career, whatever it is. So yeah, that's the title
Right.
for sure. That's dope. Now you're at LaSalle.
Right.
What is that process like? Why did you choose LaSalle? Could it have been any other school?
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely did have other options to go to, but I don't know. Initially, I'm not going to lie. I'm a homebody through and through. So me going from Oregon to Arizona wasn't that much of a jump. But when I remember when my assistant coach called me, he was like, "Yeah, we live in Philadelphia." I'm like, "Philadelphia?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm okay. Like, that's too far." But I feel like when I'm like initially like made the decision to come here, I think it was more of the fact of the community. Like, the coaches, like, yeah, like, coaches recruiting you and stuff like that, like, how, like, it all goes. But the reason why this school stuck out to me is that the coaches I felt like the coaches, like, needed me. It wasn't just like a, "Oh, yeah, like, we really want you to come." They didn't just want the name, they just didn't want number 1, like, they actually wanted Tiara Bolden there. And
Mm.
that's what it made me feel like. I'm like, "Okay, I feel like I'm needed more than just, wanted as, like, a trophy case." Like, "Oh, like, yeah, we have her, so we're good." But, like, I wanted to go to a school where I'd be needed and utilized, and I feel like me coming here and learning that and being around, like, the coaching staff that believe in me definitely helped.
Hey, for those that's watching, listening, that about to make a decision, you have
Mhm.
to go where you're wanted, where you're needed, where you're going to be valued. Just don't go
Yeah.
in. That's something I think that's underrated. I see it all the time. Kids are like, "Oh, I want to go to the Dukes and the UNCs and the
Mhm.
USCs of the world," and then get there and are miserable.
Yeah. Like, I have friends that went major D1, like, Big 10, like, big conference schools, and that's what they wanted, and they worked hard for it, don't get me wrong, but they're not, being utilized. Like, they don't play as much, but they did want all of this stuff and all of, like, fame that like big D1 schools have. And I'm like, of course I wanted it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so excited, whatever. But that just wasn't my story. Like I wanted to be somewhere where I was wanted and where I was gonna play. Because I think I can play at any level. Don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to go where I was needed, and I feel like LaSalle University proved that to me, and they put their money where their mouth was.
So I was doing my research and I saw, like you mentioned, Oregon to Philadelphia. What has that been like for you? Is it a culture shock? Is it things differently? Is there anything in Philly, PA that reminds you of home? Like, how has that been? Because I saw that, and I know my cousin, he went from Jersey to California for college. His mom had to live with him for the first year for him to get acclimated.
Oh
Yeah.
wow,
So how was
that's
that for
crazy. I mean, the adjustment has been definitely different. Like Oregon is like a smaller state, not much diversity. And, the time zone is, 3 hours behind over there. But I don't know how to like put it into words. It's just like it's just so different over here. Like I wasn't expecting like, Oregon's kind of like mellow, laid back, but I feel like the East Coast is more like fast paced. But
Mhm.
also it's like people are like I don't know. Like people are just like more like fast paced when it comes to just life in general. Like people got places to be, all of that stuff. But in Oregon, it's kind of like take your time, nothing too crazy. But also like the abundance of diversity. I've never seen that before. So the fact that like I'm able to walk outside and I see people that look just like me, that hit so different because I never grew up around that. I was always like the black sheep, no pun intended. Like I was the one that was always like, the odd man out or the one that was different from everybody else. But now that there's like people that look like me and I have a community that's like diverse and stuff, it feels really nice to be in that sort of community. Um, but also like with the whole like basketball wise, or are we talking about like basketball wise, like how I'm adjusting? Like
Both.
from the East Coast West?
We could touch on that.
Okay. Basketball wise, I feel like the competition is a lot greater from where I was. Like, yeah, competition's good West Coast, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's a lot more competitive on the East Coast for sure. I don't know how to explain it, but like it's just a whole different shit. Like, I feel like where I was, it wasn't as like um I would say like more like competitive, like more as like aggressive and people like actually getting into it. But over here, I'm like, man, like people are like they don't mind the contact, like they love it, like it's completely different. But I definitely think like moving from the West Coast to the East Coast is definitely helping me to like learn more about that because I do need to be more aggressive and start taking initiative a little bit more.
Now, complete sidebar.
Okay.
Once school is done, do you feel that you'll stay East Coast or you're going back West Coast?
Wait, say it one more time.
Once college is done for you, do you feel like you would stay East Coast or go West Coast?
I don't know. I did want to stay East Coast, I'm not gonna lie. Um, I'm not quite sure where, but I don't I'm not sure actually. Like I really do like the East Coast, don't get me wrong. But I mean if family wasn't involved, like if I didn't have any family on like the West Coast, I'd probably stay East Coast. Like if I'm being completely honest. But since I have family and I'm like a homebody, I'm more like maybe not Oregon, maybe like California or like something West Coast. But yeah, it's a hard pick between the two, but we'll see. We'll see how,
Okay. Now you wear number one. For those that do not know, you wear number one. What is the significance, if there is any, of you choosing number one?
Initially, I I just chose number 1 because it was the only one number available, especially like my freshman year. It changed a lot over the years. Like it used to be like after Kevin Durant 35. And I was like, okay. After 35, it was number 5. And then number 5 went to number 2 because number 5 was like the first jersey number that I had playing on varsity because that's the only number that they had. And then I was like, why not do a reverse flip and choose number 2? Because it's like 5 is basically like 2 flipped upside down, basically. I thought that was cool. And then something that my trainer said. He was like, number one, you can either be really good or you can be really bad. But in this case, you're really good, so you should be number one. And initially I was like, yeah, number one, like that's a pretty good number. Like usually if you're number one, you're pretty tough. But it didn't really hit as hard until this year. There
Mm.
has been a because I'm Christian, so I've been diving deeper into my word, and there is this phrase. It's called audience of one. So you're
Mm.
not playing for everybody else. You're not playing for just your family or for yourself. I'm playing for God, and I feel like once I shifted that perspective and started thinking like, okay, like God, I'm playing for you, it made my number make sense. Like it made me think like, okay, like my number is to prove audience of one. Like it's literally just me and God, nobody else, you know? So I think that's like the main reason why I chose that number and why I kept it, because I was thinking about changing it again, but something just told me to stick with it. So
Well, I said it earlier, but I
mhm.
like that title better. Audience of one. I like that. Like that better. Shout out to you though for diving deeper into the word and coming with that. I think that's a good perspective to have. Again, across the board, like everything you do, the Bible talks about everything we do it unto the Lord. So
Yeah.
your job, your relationship, you cooking, whatever it is, do
Mhm.
it unto the Lord, and that changes your perspective on how you operate. Because I'm not, my coach might get on my nerves, my teammate might mess up, but I'm not doing it for them. I'm supposed to be doing it for God. So that changes
Exactly.
everything, everything right there. So that's dope. That's the new title of the episode. So we're gonna have to change
Good
it up.
bet. Good to
Audience,
know.
for you growing up now, you started taking it serious in junior year, but once you started taking it serious, were there any players that you looked up to or you tried to model your game after? Did your trainer have you watch any film or anybody that
Mhm.
you're similar to? Like, what was that?
Oh, I have a lot of people that I watched. My trainer made me at first like, you know, I would watch NBA all the time just to watch it, but then once I actually started getting into like study it, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is definitely one that I was definitely stuck with. I used to be a huge fan of him. I used to have like walk around with like, the elite socks with Kevin Durant on it, the backpack,
Classic.
everything, my number after him, like all of that. Um, I really liked LeBron, but I feel like that's kind of, basic. Not, I mean, LeBron's a go, don't get me wrong. But like for me now, I am definitely like a fan of Marcus Smart just
Mm,
because of like his defense and like I would watch a whole bunch of like videos on like basically like defense IQ. And that definitely helped me because I'm more of a defensive player than offensive, but I'm definitely like trying to be a threat on both ways of the court. A little bit more offensively than I am defensively. Stephen Curry for sure, especially like, him shooting and his consistency made me think like, oh, like I know I'm a shooter, but I learned so much from him to where like, you know, I can start to do it on my own and by myself. And also I don't know, something about Stephen Curry, like his humbleness and how he's just so humble because he grew up like on his like rise when he went to Davidson, he was the runt. He was super small. People were like, "Oh, like he's good?" question mark. But defying like the fact that he was smaller than everybody else, he still turned out to be one of the greatest people and I'm like, that could be me. So I stuck with him. Um Sabrina Ionescu for sure. Definitely. When she played at Oregon specifically, I was
mm.
literally watching every single game, trying to take notes on the moves that she was doing. And I practiced them in the gym with my trainer because I was like, that's just, I was like, she's just so tough. And then two other people, they're in my family, actually. One of my cousins, her name's Jordan Reynolds. She played at Tennessee. I think it was in like 2016. Yeah, she played at Tennessee. And I don't know. I just love the fact that first off, she was a PG, but she was also effective. And, as a little kid, I'm like, oh, I want to be just like her. Like, I want to play basketball. So I would study and I'd film and like take notes off of her as well. And then my uncle, his name's Keith Reynolds, he played at the University of Oregon. And yeah, he was gifted, like God-given talent, I could you not. But like after watching like all of them and stuff, I'm like, man, like their come ups were so crazy. And I really think that like I can go farther than like with my family members. I think that I'm on the path to going somewhere greater, like reaching farther than they have. So I'm like trying to get there.
Shout out to the fam. I didn't know it was in the bloodline. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Now, for you, you mentioned all that, and looking at it, is it safe to say, because you just mentioned, you feel you could go further, that ultimately the goal is the W or overseas life for you?
Mhm. Definitely. I want to play for as long as I possibly can. And I
Mm,
know like basketball, you only have a certain amount of dribbles left in your body,
mm.
but I still think I could go far with it. So I just want to just go all out for it because I only have one life. So I'm like, might as well work for it.
Now, you being in the actual sport, because a lot of people have opinions on it from the outside looking in,
Hmm.
commentators. What is your thoughts on the state of women's basketball as a whole, the collegiate and the professional level?
I'm not gonna lie, I think it's more entertaining than the boys. Not saying that, the boys isn't, but for the women's side, it's more disciplined. Like they focus more on discipline and like the smaller details. Um, but also like I feel like I learn a lot more from the women's side because I'm a girl myself, so I'm like I feel like I can understand a little bit more like where they're coming from. But also I feel like collegiate women's basketball is starting to come on the rise, especially Caitlin Clark and all of that stuff. But I really think that they're starting to get the recognition that they deserve. So I really hope that like it continues to like increase for sure.
Definitely. I saw a stat from Boardroom that women's sports in general, specifically like they was talking about collegiate basketball,
Yeah.
WNBA, the views have gone up like 174% in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Like
it's,
the past Final Four tournament had more viewers than what the NBA was it the NBA finals?
yeah, I think
Or
one
was
of
it
the finals games, yeah.
yeah. That was absolutely crazy. And I'm just like, I really hope that it like keeps going up from there.
It was crazy too to be the beginning of the season that Caitlin Clark and they had the whole NFL football stadium
Filled.
out. And I'm like, oh,
That is
that.
crazy.
And for me, women's basketball has a special place in my heart because I coached it, and then I have two sisters that played it. I think it is getting finally the just due that it deserves because it's been
Mhm.
a long time coming. Like I've been on this pedestal by myself for years. Like, nah, women's basketball is legit. Nah, it's good. You should go watch a game. Oh no, go watch a game.
Yeah, literally.
Go watch a game. And then the live experience too. I don't know if you ever been to the WNBA games live.
Mhm.
Like I
It's
don't know.
crazy. The energy is just so different.
I'm like I don't know how you can't fall in love with this sport, even going to a live game. Like
Mhm.
being over here, we go to Liberty games, especially this past season.
They're so good. Yeah, literally. I understand completely.
It was a crazy season this year. So every single game was like a movie in there, and the fan support is different. I think than the NBA games. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
NBA games, and it's kind of like it's more of a to say I was here and they're not engaged, depending on what team you go to. Every
Mhm.
Liberty game I went to, it was
Everyone's engaged.
every single fan is basically engaged from the tip to the end of the game. It's just different.
Right.
Now we are, we shared the love for this, and for
Right.
anybody aspiring to be in your position that's looking at this, watching this, listening to this later, and they're like, yo, I want to do what she's doing. What advice would you give to that person watching this?
Um, that's a good question. I definitely say you have to like if you really love the sport, there's going to be times where you fall like in and out of love, you're going to get discouraged, but you have to keep pushing. Like even on the days that like you feel like that you don't want to do it or like um like you'd rather sleep than rather go put the work in. I used to think, like my uncle would tell me, work while your enemies are sleeping. So
Mm.
like all the people around you, like you want to continue to put the work in and be consistent, because I feel like, yes, you can say that you have a love for the sport, but unless you keep being disciplined, I feel like love has discipline in it. Like if you truly love something, you'll be disciplined and you'll stay committed to it. So literally don't lose your hope. Like keep holding on to that one dream that you had since you were who knows how young, but like keep pursuing it, because I feel like if you are stuck on it and if you're grounded saying, "Hey, this is what I want to do," and if you have a made up mind, I think you can definitely do it. It's just you have to stay disciplined and you have to trust the process. And that's why I continue to nag on about, like, yes, you're going to get discouraged, but you have to continue to accept the challenge and trust the process. Like literally fall in love with the process, because I feel like the journey is going to be so much greater than the result. I promise you. Yeah, the result will be good, but I feel like the journey will make you appreciate it a lot more. So definitely keep pushing and stay disciplined.
Most definitely. Kobe talks about it. Like once you're at the top of
Mhm.
the mountain, all right, it's cool, I got it. But the journey up to that is what truly is the most important part of that. Last question before we transition to the fourth quarter segment, which is like
Okay.
fire, get to know some fun questions. But the last one before we get there, how do you stay focused and in a good mental space?
Well, one thing that I recently started doing is self affirmations.
Mm.
So like I would speak positive things into my life, because I feel like if I were to speak something negative, right? Like you don't have to, say like curse words or like curse words at yourself, but you can literally be cursing your life by the things that you say, because in the Bible it does say like the life and death is in the power of the tongue. So you have to be careful of the things that you say, because the more that you say it, you're going to think it and you're going to believe it in your heart. So I have to continue, like if I make mistakes, I'll be like, okay, next play. Can't change anything about it. Keep going. Like you got this. Just because you make a mistake doesn't necessarily mean that you're terrible. Um, Another thing that I'll do, other than like positive talk, is, I mean, I study, like I read my word and I'll like read other like motivational things to keep me pushing, because yeah, like sometimes basketball, like you might lose your motivation, but it's like you still have to keep pushing. Like it's a job. Like you have to continue to show up every day, even when you feel like you can't show up. Um, Another thing that I'll continue to do, I'll listen to music. Motivating music, or I'll literally just like before I go to practice, I'll put like my headphones on and lay on my bed, and I'll literally just like blast music that I feel like has a message that I need to like wrap around my head, and I'll literally close my eyes and envision myself playing like confidently to the best of my ability, because I feel like once I do that, then it's more like, okay, like you can see yourself doing it, so you're going to do it, because all the visions that are in your mind are the ones that are going to, like, I feel like come to life. That makes sense. And
Oh,
then
oh, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
have one more thing. I
Mhm.
used to get sticky notes. So things that I didn't believe when I was younger, like at my old school, I'd say maybe like my freshman year, because struggling like with your confidence and all of that stuff, it's not the easiest. And I feel like every athlete goes through it. So I'll write sticky notes of like things that I need to see in order for me to, feel like I believe it. So I'll put it out everywhere. Like sticky notes, I'd put like maybe 20, 30 on my desk, and they're literally everywhere I turn to. So that way I see it and I have to read it every time I see it. And the more that you read it and you see it and you start speaking it, it's going to become a habit to where when you feel like the next time that you feel like that and you're on the court, it's going to snap and be like, oh, I saw this on my desk, but this means this, this, and this. So that means I can do this, this, and this. That makes sense. Okay,
Makes
sorry.
you're good. Makes perfect sense. And everything you just said boils down to a lot of it is in the mind, like the battle of the mind.
Mhm.
What am I telling myself? What am I listening to? What you
Who are you
think,
listening to?
it's all
Yeah.
going up. So that's huge across the board. And that's great. But obviously, you already mentioned a couple times, you and your words. So you obviously in a good headspace and understanding what you need to do.
Mhm.
Make sure that you stay in that way. Fourth quarter segment.
Okay, let's go.
We ask every single guest, what is your go-to meal? What's your favorite thing to eat?
Mm. I'm a foodie, so technically any type of food is my favorite. But I'm more of like a chicken Alfredo, shrimp Alfredo, or chicken and shrimp Cajun Alfredo. That is my
Ooh,
go-to. And every time I make it, never disappoints. It is so good. And pizza, of course. But like, yeah,
I
mostly
can dig.
pasta.
I can dig. Complete. It wasn't on the list of questions, but I gotta ask, being that you're at Lasalle, have you
Okay.
had Philly cheesesteak and from where?
I have. I went to Delisandro's. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan. The Delisandro's, it wasn't hitting. But I've gone to other places. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they
Mhm.
are really good and they're pretty filling. But usually, like, they're like this big and they're pretty filling. I usually eat two of them. So they're good though. They're good. Just a little bit more salt because sometimes I feel like it doesn't have a whole lot of flavor. But other than that, I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, that's a huge thing when it comes to the Philly cheesesteaks. Some of them
Mhm.
are seasoned well. Like it all depends where you get your Philly cheesesteak at Philly.
Literally.
It truly depends. Oftentimes I end up just making one at home myself. I feel I can do a little bit better. You feel me? Yeah.
No, I agree. For sure.
So you mentioned you'll listen to music before practice.
Mhm.
What's on your musical playlist? Like, what are the type of artists, type of music genres that you listen to before your practices, before your games?
There's a whole lot. I have like 4 playlists right now
Okay.
currently, and I'll usually like mix them through. I listen to worship music, obviously. There's this new band called Maverick City. They're not
Yes.
that new, but it's like a Christian group. I listen to them a lot. There's some other people that I listen to. Like Kirk Franklin is if I'm feeling a little upbeat, but it's more of like Maverick City, Torrin Wells, Jonathan McReynolds. But if I'm not feeling worship and I'm like, I need something bumping, I'll go 2010s, hip hop and R&B.
Okay.
Hip hop and like all of like the classics that like everyone would sing to and everyone would know, I would listen to those types of songs.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
It
So,
varies.
movies or books?
Um okay, my top favorite movie currently I'd probably say is Tangled. Like
Oh,
Disney Channel. I'm a Disney fanatic. It's really crazy. But yeah, Tangled is definitely my favorite. But then I'd say like Adam Sandler movies, like Blended or like Just Go With It. Those are those are like my bread and butter. But I'm just starting this book. It's called You're More Than What You've Been Told.
mm,
And this definitely is like basically it teaches like you how to like lock in with Jesus, but also like applying that to your life. Like, for example, like all the things that you've been told that may have damaged your mental health or like drained your confidence and things like that. But instead of you trying to find confidence through other people, you're finding it through him. And then he's just going to remind you that stuff. So I'll read stuff like that just to like keep me grounded, but I'm more of like a rom-com movie or like Disney Channel. But yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to get into reading more, but movies are definitely there.
I'm a movie person too. Definitely trying to read more. Definitely going to add that to the list of books that I need to read. That sounds like a great book. Really,
Mhm.
really. And it's funny you mentioned Adam Sandler. I was just saying the other day. I
He's
don't know if I
so
are like a.
good.
I don't know if I have to start like a movie podcast with my love for movies because I'm like Adam Sandler. Literally,
Mhm.
the last like 5-10 years, the Netflix
He's a
video
goat.
movies that he's been making, he's been on a crazy run. Dag near
Mhm.
everything he put out is really, really good. And me
Yeah.
personally, I like
Oh, and did you know
Adam.
Hustle?
Yes,
Right. Hustle was made here on campus.
Oh,
So
he made
like
at your campus?
that's so crazy. I'm like, man, I really could have met this man if I came sooner, but it's okay.
That's
I'm
the
a
thing
little
too. I like what
disappointed,
Adam
but
said. He actually, if you watch his movies, a lot of his movies he uses a lot of the same people. It's like he's making sure
mhm.
his friends and all that they forever got a job. The extras
Yeah,
on they
literally.
Adam Sandler is working, you have a job every single time, and I love that he keeps like that core together. Like, all right, I'm gonna get Kevin James on this movie. I'm gonna like he literally keeps that same core together.
No,
It just
literally. He's clutch, literally.
very. So it just passed, but Christmas or Thanksgiving, which holiday you like more?
Christmas. I'm like, is that even a question? Like, yeah, Thanksgiving food is good, but there's not a thing like Thanksgiving season or like, you're getting ready for Thanksgiving. It's more of like Christmas season's coming, matching pajamas, Christmas cookies, all of that stuff, going to see lights. Thanksgiving is just like, you eat and then that's it. And don't get me wrong, the food is good, but I don't think anything could really beat Christmas. I think that's like the best holiday of the year, hands down.
I completely agree. Not gonna get any disagreement on that from me. I'm a Christmas guy every single day of the week. Give me Christmas. Two more before we get you out of here.
Okay.
What would the album or a book or a movie, if it was made about your life, what would that title be?
I was thinking about this one and it took me a while because I'm like, I'm not quite sure. But there's a word of the year. Yeah, word of the year that I've literally been sticking with. The word's called becoming.
Mm.
And then in subscript, it'd be don't count me out. Because I'm still growing. I'm not there yet. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be there. So that's why I'm saying like I'm becoming who I'm going to be. So don't count me out. I think
Mm.
that would be my title.
I like it. I like it. Last one. Again, we thank you for hopping on with the Bench Mob ENT. We appreciate it.
Of course.
5 people, dead or alive, that you'd like to have a meal with.
They have to be alive,
Dead
you
or
say?
alive.
Oh,
Dead
dead or alive. Okay. I'd probably say my grandpa for sure. Because crazy thing, he told me, I remember when I first started playing on varsity basketball that I sucked. And I wanna bring him back to tell him, do I still suck to you? But like I miss him a lot. So I'm like, I definitely have him. Um Diamond Miller, hands
Mm.
down, for sure. Because we're I feel like we'd be like, I think we'd be pretty cool. We'd be pretty chill together. Also, like I'm kind of like her in a sense. I'm tall and lanky. So is she, but also she has boobs in her bag. I do too. And I'm like, okay, like I could get some knowledge from her. But I feel like I'd want to also meet Marcus Smart for sure. And then Stephen Curry. Definitely Stephen Curry. Um, I don't know. He just seems like a really genuine guy. And I'm like, I could rock with that for real. And then the last person would probably be my uncle that also passed away because he was one of my literally biggest supporters with basketball. Like he would um come and drive to my basketball games that were like 3 or 4 hours away just to come watch me play. Like he was very dedicated. And especially like with my mom and her brothers and sisters, they were also like major D1 athletes as well. So he was like their biggest supporter, basically like their like second dad. And he basically took me under his wing as well. So I'm like, just to say thank you, like I'd definitely have him there as well.
Hey, that's a pretty solid table right there. I might pull up just to be around
Listen, you're more than welcome to.
just to be around all that knowledge right there that's going to be shared. Um, I know I said it was the last question, but you just made me think about it because you mentioned Diamond Miller. Who are your like favorite female athletes right now?
Collegiate or NBA? WNBA?
Uh, collegiate, WNBA, who are your favorite 5 right now? Because I think
Um,
that's a good comparison and mentioning Diamond Miller. So who do you comes to your mind?
I instantly think, obviously, other than Diamond Miller, Paige Beckers. I've literally been following her since high school. Um, I would probably say Diana Taurasi,
Mm.
just because she has a unique feel for the game that I don't think a whole lot of people have, and it just made I don't know. I think that part like of her understanding just makes her special. Um, Man, this is hard. I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
I've been watching Caitlin Clark since like before her come up. So like I basically knew of her before she got like, super famous. So I mean, I could say her, but I don't know. I watched a whole lot of South Carolina as well. So like Zaya Cook, I watched her, Aaliyah Boston, and I think her name was Destiny Little too. Like I would definitely watch a whole lot of them. So I'm more of like a free flower. Like I'll watch whoever's playing. But yeah, those are like the people that really come to mind. Oh, also, her name's Ari McDonald. Ari McDonald?
Mm.
Ari.
Come on, yeah.
I watched her too because like even though she was small, there were people like doubting her and stuff. She made it to the WNBA. Like all it takes is one good game, really. But it just made me like want to work even harder because that's what she was doing. So I'm like, like it makes me want to work harder. So yeah.
Well, you have a home podcast now. If you ever want to hop on again, hey, I want to talk about I dropped 40 today and had the game winning block. You are more than welcome to hop back on.
Bet.
We are definitely appreciative that you hopped on with us. We look forward to you going pro. And then we're going to have you hop back on again to talk about the process of how you went pro and how
For
that.
sure.
But y'all know the vibes though. If you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. Bench mob, we out. Peace.